Hi everyone, my name's Mike, and today we're going to be looking at healthy teams. As a little bit of background to myself, I'm married to Fee and we have 3 kids, 2 of whom are teenagers, Caleb and Abby, and our youngest Levi is in his last year at primary school. I'm full-time on staff at Dunedin City Baptist Church, where I've been for the last 17 years, although here for about 30 years in ministry. One of the key roles that I have is leading a team who head up our high school age youth ministry, years 9 to 13. And you can see the team here. Several of them are university students, several are young workers, and several, like myself, are older workers. Well as being part of this really cool youth leadership team whom I absolutely love and love being part of, almost every ministry that I serve in currently or from the past has been built in teams. I guess the most significant of which at the moment is our staff leadership team of 8 of us. Team is a very important aspect of ministry life. Jesus himself modelled ministry like this. And a team is so much more effective than just the sum of the individuals in it. I believe also that this is the place where you are forced into a relational community, which is how God intended us to operate. It's where the rough edges get ground off as we rub shoulders together and sometimes even bang heads. But that's so good for us and for our own personal growth, especially in a world which is telling us and pushing us more and more towards isolation and individualism. I believe too that team is essential to enduring in ministry. You know, leadership can be a very lonely path. It can be difficult and painful at times. And so we need the camaraderie of others in order to survive. Either they share the load with us or they walk the road beside us. So let's look at what makes a healthy team. I've only got a few minutes, so I just want to concentrate on 3 core principles or values that we hold to as our leadership team. And these are based on the fact that the key to a healthy team are great relationships, essentially friendships. Great teams usually have great friendships. And also maturity, individuals maturing as disciples, growing up to be big boys and girls in the way we interact with others. So let's look at that first principle, and that is, I will give 100% truth to the other members of the team regarding them and their ministry. In other words, I won't hold back my feelings or thoughts where they will affect my relationship with others on our team or our team's corporate life. Absolutely critical to any relationship being able to grow or flourish is that we are able to speak the truth as we see it, to be able to bring out into the open those relational issues so they can be addressed and dealt with. Truth has to be an absolutely top priority or very high priority. It can't be compromised. Now, we all experience issues arising out of relationships. It's part of everyday life. And it's difficult to address those things and be able to say what needs to be said. So usually what happens is we only say 90% of the truth. And that last 10%, which is usually the most important part, never gets said. And that's because we don't want to be hurtful to another person. We don't want to come across as unkind or critical. It just seems so unloving sometimes to say what is out, what's in front of us, what needs to be said. And so we hold back. Or perhaps we're just too anxious, or we lack courage to be able to say what should be said, to address an issue. We see this a lot in our youth and our young people. I think it's perhaps a bigger issue for young people, but it's a big issue for everyone. Or we worry that by saying this to this person that we'll end up with a whole lot of people in the team against us. And so that issue that is stirring us up just sits there not really fully dealt with, and it becomes an impediment to relationships and to a healthy team. Now, when I say the truth, when I talk about truth, you have to realize that it's only as I perceive it. I mean, I only have my own set of eyes. I can only see the world through them. And so before I speak, I need to do some deep soul searching and ask myself some really important questions, such as, am I also guilty of this? What is God saying in this particular situation? What would the Lord have me say? And how would be the best way to say it? This means that speaking the truth can be a really painful process for the person who's going to be speaking it, because there's so much agonizing that needs to go on beforehand about what needs to be said and perhaps how you're going to go about saying it. You have to be prepared to speak the truth in love. This is following Jesus' commandment, right? That we are to love one another just as he has loved us. So, do I love that person I'm about to speak to? Or am I jealous of them? Am I kind of secretly pleased that they've got this issue? Do I really want the best for them? But we need to speak the truth, but we're going to need to do that maturely in love. It's essential to healthy teams. A key thing to avoid here is the issue of triangling. You know, when I go and speak to Sharon about an issue I have with John, and then John eventually finds out that I've been speaking behind his back to Sharon, and so that issue becomes even more significant and more of a problem. So if I am going to be speaking to Sharon at all about John, I'm going to be making sure that I will be saying those things to John. That's my commitment. And I'm going to be speaking to Sharon as if John is looking over my shoulder at that exact same time. Speaking 100% truth is our first most core principle for healthy relationships and a healthy team. Well, the second principle is essential to the first, and that is, I will not be defensive. Now, you don't have to agree with everything that I'm sharing with you when I'm speaking the truth, but you do need to listen and to consider it, and that means not fighting back. And that's a key principle to all Christian leadership, is that as leaders, we don't fight our own battles. We let God fight them. Now imagine that you've spent long hours awake at night agonizing over this truth that you want to share with this person in your team. You've spent a long time trying to get that balance right between being clear and also saying everything with tact. And you're nervous and it's hard to find the right opportunity. But finally you have that chance, but immediately this person starts to argue back against you. What's going to happen? Well, one of two things. Either you're going to go all silent and never quite say what you wanted to say, and they never quite hear all of the truth. Or if you're the combative type, you're going to become more forceful and say things more strongly than you ever intended. Being defensive is the enemy to someone speaking the truth to us. So we need to realize the great courage it takes for someone to speak in love the truth to us. It's so hard to climb that mountain. Usually what happens is we get weak knees just before we get to the top, and we find it very difficult to say all of what we wanted to. Or we end up rushing down the other side and our emotions take over and we say things in a way that we never intended, and perhaps the other person gets the wrong end of the stick. It takes a great deal of emotional control to be in that midpoint, and not many of us have it. And so we need to realize that courage that it takes for another to speak like this. We should be thanking them for their honesty and being willing to have that courage. We need to be people who hunger and thirst for righteousness, and that means wanting to hear the truth about ourselves. We need to be people who are humble and are meek. You know, hearing the truth about yourself can be very painful. And so ultimately we need also the security that God loves us deeply. And so this need to crush us. Well, the third principle is really important to the other two, and that is, I will own the ministry of the other members of my team. Being real team means realizing that we're all pulling in the same direction, that although we have different portfolios or ministries, we're all working towards the common global goal of our ministry. So while I'm rowing over here, it really matters what the person's doing on the rudder over there. Of course, I really want them to succeed and do well in their role, because ultimately their success determines my own success and mine theirs. We're both needed to get this boat moving and going in the right direction. So this principle really challenges the way I look at my teammates. Of course, I want to help them succeed and do really well in their role. And it's going to change the way I speak the truth to them. I'm not going to be lobbing pot shots from my side of the boat to theirs to criticize or pull them down. But on the flip side, I want to speak the truth to them about issues that really matter. This principle actually challenges me to pray for my teammates and to work towards strengthening and encouraging them. Well, that's the three core principles. We've only had a short amount of time to look at them, but they're absolutely important to developing great relationships in a team, which builds a healthy team.
Hey, we're here with Mike Simpson from Dunedin City Baptist Church. We thought we would talk about this really challenging and yet hopeful idea of what a team can really be like. Mike, thanks so much for what you shared. What I love about what you said is not only is it nice and easy to follow, you folks have been doing this for a long time. Your whole church team is like this, let alone your youth ministry team. So you really lived this out. So I thought maybe we talk a little bit about how to do that. How do you live that out?
Sure.
What you explained really different from the way the world kind of works. In the real world, you speak truth to someone, and even if someone asks for it and you speak that kind of truth, they get angry, they get hurt, and if they're in a power position, they can actually kind of punish you one way or the other. So how do you do this? How do you help create a team that becomes as honest and trusting as you've described?
Well, I guess the first thing to say is it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it takes quite a long time. You've got to allow people time for these things, and you're going to get some bumps on the road for sure.
Yeah.
I guess it takes a real personal commitment from each member of the team. To be a person who's not going to react negatively to when they're speaking the truth to you, or someone speaking the truth to you, and not being defensive. I mean, yeah, it does take huge humility and a personal commitment to be going down that path. In our team environment, I think one of the key things there is to create a safe environment where these things can happen.
Right.
We actually have this thing in our staff leadership team. If someone puts their hands on head like this, it's kind of our sign language, and that says, at the moment, I'm being vulnerable, so back off on the jokes. Be really kind to me at this moment, because this is going to be hard for me to say. So, because we're all joking around all the time. It's all fun. Usually taking the mickey out of a few people, in love. But when someone's wanting to speak personally, you've got to kind of cuddle that stuff back. You don't want to be joking around. You want to be taking that seriously.
That's even a very vulnerable position doing that. How did you come up with that idea?
Just one of the women on our team one time said we should do this because it would really help, so that everyone knows that I'm going to find this hard to say right at this moment.
Right.
Yeah. I think too, you have to, as part of the safe environment, you have to have trust in others, and you have to be able to create a sense of trust. That means, the normal things, confidentiality. You shouldn't be sharing what's being said in the team where it's not being shared. You have to know the other teammates have your back. And once that's a growing thing, right? You don't just trust someone overnight. You've got to learn that over time, or have that experience with them. And then you can feel like you can share more personally. We try and create an environment where truth can be spoken. So we'll have regular reviews. A person, like say it's my area, I'll share about the youth group, what's going on, and just open it up for questions, and people can throw all sorts of things in there. I know, because I trust them, they're not just taking pot shots. If there's criticism or any awkward questions, it's just people wanting to find out information. I'm not going to jump to a conclusion that someone's got something out for me on this, because I've already committed to trust them. So if you ask me a quick question like, Mike, what are you doing about evangelism at the moment? I know you're not saying, Mike, you're doing a crap job at evangelism. You're just asking a question, and maybe that you might have picked up on something there, but yeah. So I think the other thing is about a teachable environment is you've got to allow people to take risks and to fail. That's part of it. And so if you're failing, oh well, try again. You'll learn something from that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. This topic is, it's so countercultural. It's not like the teams around the country right now that are watching this can watch this, talk about, let's do this, and then become that tomorrow. What are some heads up? If a team decides we're going to be this honest and this trusting of each other, what are some heads up on what might be bumps in the road in the future, and kind of what to be aware of, and what can you do as a result?
Well, the first thing to be aware of is this is going to be a painful journey for everyone on the team. I mean, when you decide to go down this path, you are putting yourself forward for some serious pain, and I'm talking about deep pain and brokenness, because no one wants to hear what they're not doing well. No one wants to hear people almost criticize them for even the way they are, even if they're expressing it in a way like, "Hey, Brian, I'm really struggling with this in the way that you talk to me." You don't want to hear it, because in what they're really saying is, Brian, you're going to have to make some changes in your life
Right.
for us to get on well as a team. I mean, you
Right.
don't have to accept what I'm going to say, because I might be just way off,
Yeah.
but it is going to be a painful journey. So that's one of the bumps in the road. I think we cope with that by trying to have a lot of humor and stuff too. You
Yeah.
don't want to be heavy and serious all the time. It's quite nice when someone can just crack a joke and have some fun with you, and it just it lightens the mood in these situations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can sense, yes, you have to love each other, but you have to like each other, don't you? You gotta like being with each other to be able to take that and know
Yeah.
they got my best in mind. And yeah, tough challenge.
It is, yeah.
What this comes down to the individual, I think. What kind of person do I need to become to be a part of a team like that?
I mean, it takes real humility, right? But some things you have to deal with. I think personal envy and jealousy, these words that Christians do not want to hear. Like, no one wants to own up to the fact that they might be envious or jealous, because that's not what Christians are, right?
Right.
But as in leadership, they're some of the big killers. And so what makes someone defensive, what makes it difficult for them to hear the truth is they're hearing from this other person, and it's making them sound like they're not as good as they think they are. We don't like that. Or when we want to speak truth to someone, we've got to make sure that we're not doing it out of envy or jealousy. These things just sit really deeply in us, and they come out, and it's hard to deal with those things.
Oh man. So, and in today's world, because we live in our society now, being authentic, being real means I can come to you and say, Mike, you know what? I am lazy and I'm a liar, and that's who I am. So take me or leave me. I want to be a part of the team. And I was just honest with you. And I'm not looking for change. I'm not looking, if you push back on me, that means you don't like me and you're judging me and I'm heading out. So that's the society we kind of live in. It's more like, this is just how it is, take it or leave it. Yet we're looking for, what I'm hearing is transformation. This is a process where we're becoming better people by being a part of this team, more Christ-like people being part of this team. So how hard is it for you have a team that's learned to do this, been through the bumps, all the hard stuff, learned to trust each other, and then you bring on 2 new people in August to join halfway through the year to join your team. What's it like for a new person coming in? How do you help a new person join the team in the midst of this way of being already?
Well, I mean, it always depends on their background. Have they been in a culture where teams have shared like this, or have they been in a situation where the leader is really dominant and no one wants to speak up? Sometimes, if they're from another culture, like Asian cultures, you don't naturally say things to elder people or leaders, so it's more difficult for those people. I guess I'm very, very cautious in bringing people onto our team. So I'm not. I mean, I'm looking for personal qualities way over skill. I mean, personal qualities trump skill every day.
Right.
So we're always looking for great people. But when you've got a team environment where people are like this, as a leader, you don't actually have to do too much, because the team pulls everyone up. They set the standard.
Right.
And so, yeah, there might be sometimes you have to have a conversation with people, but I think people get it when they fit in, because that's the whole culture of the team.
Right.
So right. I don't think I've had to do too much in terms of that, because we always pick really quality people. We have this philosophy that good trees produce good fruit. Jesus' message. And so, if you care a lot about how the person's going personally, and you work on those things as a leader, in the sense of you check in on that and you encourage them in that, they will produce great fruit in the end, and that will come through in their qualities and the work they do. So I guess really focusing on the heart of the person's important. But yeah, as a leader, you've got to start at the top. I've got to be the first to be able to share the truth, and the first to be non-defensive, first to be able to accept what other people are saying. Yeah. And then others will follow along.
Yeah. And your youth ministry is not a bubble, right? It's not like we're the only group here that does this. The whole value and ethos of DCBC is like this, isn't it? It's
actually the most difficult places is in the highest leadership team, our own staff team.
Yeah.
Youth leadership, there's a lot at stake, but there's not as much at stake as when you're leading the whole church. Yeah. And with youth ministry, people are easier to get along with, I find, than in our staff team, because we have a lot of different ages and different types of people in our youth team. We're the people who join youth groups and want to lead there's a lot of similarities. So in our staff team, it's the hardest actually to do this.
Yeah, and you got a shared kind of purpose, passion in one youth ministry team where you have lots of purposes and passions across the board. Yeah, the team. Hey, last question, and I thought of this when you were talking in your presentation before this. I went, man, how do we do this? It's really non-Kiwi. Ooh, this is dangerous. It's really non-Kiwi to want the best for other people. It's actually more of a Kiwi trait, especially up on the top of the North Island, where it's more about we make friends by complaining about other people behind their back. We complain about the same things. We become mates. It's good to see someone fail because I lift up. It's a competitive world. How do you help a team become one that actually wants success for the other people? And is that anything to do with what keeping an eye on the bigger prize, a bigger purpose? What have you found is helpful to help that change that total, I think, Kiwi value and make it, we want the best for each other?
Well, one of the impediments to this is, especially if you're the main leader of the team or the head leader, is the feeling that someone might take your job if they really rise up and become good. And so you got to deal with the fact that, hey, if I'm really helping Brian here, you might become a lot better at all the things that I love doing than I am. Yeah. And then I'm feeling threatened. Hey, you might take my job here. But you need to realize, at least in a place where there's even better leadership higher up as well, that no one's going to sack you for being a great leader. Probably, though, I'm going to have to give way on some of the things that I love to do. Brian, I've just realized you're so much better at this than I am. Why don't you do that? And I'm just going to end up becoming more and more involved in the leadership and perhaps potentially management side of things. So that's one of the big things to deal with, is to want others to rise up and be willing for them to take your place and have the security that, hey, well, I'm becoming a better leader. So I'm still growing. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Leaders are, a measurement of a great leader is that you have even greater people surrounding you as part of your team in different areas. So brilliant. Hey, Mike, thank you very, very much. Really have appreciated you speaking to the whole nation about what a healthy team is. And not challenging, but really hopeful and inspiring. So thank you so much for your time. God bless you.
Good on you. Thank you.